Nothing is better than a good novel. Something to sink your mind into the world of literature, to see the world through someone else's eyes. Or at least so much is true in the world of literature. But what about in the world of gaming? See, there are pretty much two parts to every game. The gameplay and the story. And other harder in-depth parts to look at, but I'm not a game designer, so I don't know. And if you already looked at the thumbnail, you already know that this is about that thing. Gameplay versus story. So why don't we have an in-depth look, shall we? Please stay with me through this. Gaming, a form of entertainment that has been around for a while now, and honestly, it's great to see some accomplishments have been made. I mean, before it was hard to even make out what something was in a game. Remember this? Yeah, I know, but a lot of things that determined how a game was created was space, pixel size, and all that stuff. Which brings up part of the main point, story. During this time, the thought of a cutscene was madness. I mean, there was barely enough room for a text box to explain what to do. Okay. I don't know what to do with this. Where do I go now? You know I'm just a kid, right? I mean, seriously, a lot of games didn't really tell you what your main goal and purpose was. A lot of it was based off inference or put in a manual. And really, who wants to read? So because of this, most of the story came from the player's imagination, or from the actual gameplay. Or, hey, games wouldn't have an overall goal at all. The point was to get the highest score possible and have bragging rights. But as gaming hardware got better, there was more room to try and include a story, and begins games that focus on telling a real story with in-depth plots, especially in RPGs like Final Fantasy, Secret of Mana, and Mother, or Earthbound, or whatever you want to call it. Now clearly all that's cool, you know, I mean, games want to be seen as an art form, but at the end of the day, they're games. What matters is how well do they play. And the good news is, even with these in-depth stories, gameplay wasn't sacrificed. They still had intricate and tactful playstyles, RPG or not. Games were making awesome gameplay, but some games were still trying to pull some old things in. Really? This again? I'm still just a kid, you know. I'm getting real tired of adults in this world shirking their responsibilities to little kids. I'm gonna take the sword this time, but don't expect me to do this again. So it's awesome, we have amazing games with amazing stories. Sweet. But if you looked at the title of this video, we're talking about how they stack up in comparison. I mean, how much does the story matter? How much does gameplay matter? Well, we've been able to see that games originally didn't have much stories, and did very well, but now standards have changed, and a game without a story seems to be scarce in the world of AAA gaming titles, and even some games are based simply off of story, and choices you make, such as any Telltale game or Heavy Rain, not really relying on gameplay, rather all notoriety comes from the amazing story they made. So does that make them good games, or do games that have working gameplay but lack of direction and story fall under good games too? Well, here's what I think. Warning, this is my opinion. It is not made to line up with your views and opinion, but if it does, awesome. But if not, oh well. Now first, let's tackle games with good gameplay, but a lack of focus or direction. Sure, they work, but they lack fun. The type of fun that makes you want to play it over and over and over. In other words, replay value. Replay? Oh, we're not doing that again. But the fact is that these games may intrigue you for a while, but they might not leave for a memorable experience. They may leave a feeling of dissatisfaction, the type that makes you feel, yeah, these ideas are great, but there's a lack of depth. Things are too simple and repetitive, or things may be very intricate, but with an uninteresting character who has no relatability or is just a flat personality altogether. Now, a counter-argument for this idea can be seen with the silent protagonist, the most famous one, Link. However, Link has character. However, it is possible for you to feel like you become Link and to feel the struggle and difficulty that he experiences, while other games try to make their character likable, but they simply don't meet up to that expectation. I'm looking at you, Nico Bellic. Therefore, it seems that a flat experience all around is made. So, let's transfer over to games that are mostly story, such as Telltale games, or heck, even Metal Gear or Kingdom Hearts, with long cutscenes that can last up to, wow, with a lot of time for cutscenes. Jeez. Now, with these types of games, I feel that, yes, they are games. I mean, the point is there, and they keep you intrigued and eager to play. Telltale Games has been able to create intriguing stories and what can be seen as playable novels. Sure, there isn't much gameplay besides quick time events and choices that are made which affect the stories, but you feel that your time and money wasn't wasted because there was an enjoyable experience to be had overall. With games like Kingdom Hearts, Metal Gear, etc., etc., these games are not only enjoyable on deep stories, but their gameplay also holds up very well to balance the amazing story that's being told. And overall, there's a feeling of satisfaction. However, there are cons for this as well. While some games try to focus on the story they tell, they forget that this is still a game, or even lack to tell a fluid story. Instead, there's simply a disappointing experience. Not saying any names in specific, but they don't really intrigue and therefore become games that you really feel cheated out of. So a story-based game isn't perfect either. But with all this being said, gameplay, story, the point that it really comes down to is, did you have fun? I feel that question is often lost today with AAA titles and evaluation and analysis of games. People forget what they're for, to have fun. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to analyze or look deep into games. I mean, look at what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, that's what really mattered. Whether the game had a long in-depth story but lacked gameplay, or was full of inventive gameplay but had no story to back it up, the point is, did you feel you enjoyed the experience? Did you feel, wow, this was worth my money? And overall, do you want to play it over and over again? That's what really matters. So the real question isn't whether story or gameplay is better, but rather, was there fun to be had in this overall experience?
Also, this ending is a cop-out between choosing story or gameplay.
And that's it for this episode. Thank you all for watching. Of course, I'm Doji, now you know. And leave a comment below on what your thoughts are about story versus gameplay. You know, what do you think matters more? Or do you think really, it doesn't really matter as long as there's fun? My cop-out excuse. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye.